This war is different even because so little Americans agree. 25% of the country agrees with bombing Iran. That shows you how detached the ruling class is and who the corporate media is really designed for.
Corporate media in the United States and Britain have been cheerleading the war on Iran.
Iranians in Iran saying, they're most afraid of the bombs stopping.
They're tweeting and saying, please don't stop. They are celebrating every time a bomb goes on because that is a freedom mission. It's a freedom mission for them. This is not a war.
Joining me to discuss this is the journalist Abby Martin, who's visiting London for her new documentary, Earth's Greatest Enemy, which explores the environmental impact of the US military. It's great to meet you, Abby.
Thank you for having me.
In the UK, we've seen terrible coverage of the war in Iran, a real hesitancy to call it an illegal war, to point out that Iran was attacked, that Israel is the only country in the Middle East with nuclear weapons. What's the coverage been like so far in the US?
Oh, it's been swell. I mean, it's exactly the same, if not worse, because you have more protections, right, for First Amendment.
If you saw the movie, the latest Top Gun movie, eerily enough, this is that plot kind of coming to fruition in real life. It's not just one bomb, it'll be a bomb after a bomb.
You see so much kowtowing to the narrative, needlessly, right? So acquiescing to Trump, terrified. I mean, Trump literally just told a press pool, this is treason if you don't go along with what I'm declaring about this war. It's getting cartoonish. So, I mean, you would think that there'd be lessons learned after the failures, the complicity of the Gaza genocide, the manufacturing of consent for the most heinous, grievous crime a state can commit. But no, just again, repeating the exact same script, defensive strikes on Iran. Defensive from a rogue nation, rogue nuclear-armed state that is committing genocide, right? That is bombing several of its neighbors. These are defensive strikes. So that was the first narrative that was being pushed. And then it's, well, we had to do it, right? And I even heard BBC as I was going to the screening last night.
Let me first say I'm a little bit surprised by the package because you have three voices from Iran who seem to all be celebrating and happy about the country getting bombed. To leave the impression that that is the entire viewpoint inside of Iran is getting close to Iraq-level war propaganda and war lies, frankly.
The politeness of liberalism here, in the UK, where they're just like, I disagree with Trump's process, but like someone had to do something. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the mantra. Well, Trump is doing it wrong, but at the end of the day, someone needed to do it because Iran needs to be taken down. There was an amazing interview with the Iranian foreign minister. I forget who it was, but it was a mainstream media journalist in the US who was saying, why are you doing this? Why are you attacking all of your Gulf neighbors? Why are you attacking Israel?
Iran has chosen to attack at least 10 other countries, many of them your Arab neighbors. None of them were involved in this war. Why are you attacking your Muslim neighbors?
Not attacked our neighbors. We have not attacked Muslim countries. We have attacked Americans' targets.
Did we just wake up today? I mean, did history just start today? It's this infantilizing narrative taught to us that history literally begins in the morning. You wake up, no context. We're like goldfish in a bowl with collective memory loss about what happened yesterday. So the fact that you have news anchors actually seriously talking to a minister in Iran saying, why are you attacking us? This is unfair. I mean, repeating this rhetoric from Trump, it's absurd.
Would this war be possible without the media?
No. There was a poll that came out in June of 2024, and it was a Pew Research poll that showed that half of Americans didn't know if more Israelis had died than Palestinians in the entirety of the conflict. I mean, that's astounding. Whose fault is that? That is deliberate obfuscation. That is purposeful, intentional lying to erase reality. I mean, Fox News is really forward-facing about the racism and xenophobia and bigotry and warmongering, right? I mean, you have Fox News anchors saying bomb, 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 more ships, more planes, things like that. You'll have the liberal wing, again, arguing about the process, the system, but ultimately the goal is the same. But this war is different even because so little Americans agree So little Americans agree. 25% of the country agrees with bombing Iran. That shows you how detached the ruling class is and who the corporate media is really designed for. It's for the ruling class, told by the ruling class, and that's who it benefits and that's who it dictates to and on its behalf.
The UK military has never granted Declassified an on-camera interview, so we have to resort to doorstepping ministers and military officials in the street when we see them. But what's your experience been like in the US of trying to get access to the Pentagon?
In the film Earth's Greatest Enemy, there's a really interesting contradiction kind of that's explored. On one hand, I'm working relentlessly for years to try to get an official sit-down interview with the Pentagon, and I'm constantly denied. And then finally, I'm rerouted to an office called the Entertainment Media Office. It's a division of the Pentagon based in Hollywood. And basically what they told me, and I got like a guy on camera to admit this to me, that every single thing on TV where you see the military, not just movies or TV shows, but documentary films, anytime you see any military figure in an official interview capacity, they are overseeing the editorial process of the project. They have to see the final script and they have to give agreement to the line that you are telling. So basically, that was what they told me, that they have to have editorial control over the film in order to give a response, even though their response was an essential component of the film. So on the other hand, it's kind of like, you know, the banality of evil, the stupidity of evil. They didn't Google me, so I'm applying to get on the Rimpak warship. You know, I'm applying to get at these defense contractor conferences, and they didn't Google me, and I'm able to get into these spaces regardless. So it shows you that you can do your job. You can get into the face of power. This is about doing our damn job and holding power to account. That's the most basic fundamental principle of journalism, and for some reason it's been gone. It's been lost, especially during the Gaza genocide. So it is increasingly hard to do our jobs, especially in places like Gaza, where the Israeli government has full control over who can tell the story, which is why obviously we've seen the power of the Palestinian narrative, right? I mean, reclaim their pain and their trauma and their stories. And that has posed the biggest threat of all to power, is just the raw, unvarnished truth of what Palestinians' life is like. And that's so powerful.
One place where the propaganda does still seem to work, though, is within Israeli society. So there was a recent poll that showed 93% of Israelis support the war against Iran, despite it meaning they're having to live in air raid shelters for the last few weeks. And the journalist Gideon Levy described it as like North Korea levels of indoctrination there. You spent some time in Israel interviewing ordinary Israelis.
If they're gonna throw rockets, we're gonna throw one big one and done.
I don't think there's any answer to it.
Really?
There's only one way, like, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it.
What did that experience kind of teach you about how Israelis see the situation?
There's a interesting kind of contradiction of this indoctrination in Israeli society. On one hand, it's cradle to grave. You are separate from your Palestinian brothers and sisters. They are the working class that serve you if you do interact with them. And you are taught to be terrified of them. You don't step foot into the West Bank. They put up signs themselves projecting the terror that they feel that they've taught themselves. Right? And that's the whole rationalization of the violence and brutality, is that they will do it to us, so we must do it to them first. It's a really perverse ideology. But on the other hand, I would say they're not indoctrinated in the sense of, let's say, North Korea. They know exactly what's going on. They have more honest media than the US. They see exactly what they're doing. They see the footage. They know the kids are starving. They agree with it. And this is overwhelmingly displayed. This is not just anecdotal through my man-on-the-street interviews when I was in Israel, which I was floored by in a period of relative calm. I mean, it's never relative calm for Palestinians, obviously, but this was in Jerusalem in a place called Tolerance Square, right in front of Zara, you know? And I'm talking to people from all walks of life. Every single person espoused genocidal rhetoric. Kill them all. Bomb them all, drop a big nuke, expel them. We don't want them here. I was floored. I couldn't wrap my mind around it, because until then I'd been kind of placated by politicians and media that the two-state solution was possible, right? I didn't really realize the impossibility of that until I was there and saw there is no more West Bank, and Israeli society has gone full fucking fascist. It's like Berlin 1930. I mean, it really was horrific. I felt like I couldn't spend a dime, and I felt like I had to take a shower. I was so repulsed by the casual genocidal nature. I've never experienced anything like that.
Arabs make a פיגועים and we need to kill Arabs. No.
The Islam is it's a very bad disease, not just for Israel, for all around the world.
יש לך משהו להגיד, אומרת ש...
על מה?
וגם ככה ערבים, מחשמם.
אוקיי, בסדר בעברית? פשוט מאוד, צריך להיכנס לשטחים, וכל מחבל שעושה פיגוע צריך להרוג אותו, צריך להרוג את המחבלים, ואז הם יפחדו ולא יעשו לנו בעיות, והכל יהיה בסדר. הם יהיו בכפרים שלהם, אנחנו נחיה פה, לא צריך להיות ביחד, והכל בסדר.
And that's what's most disturbing is when you let a state have impunity, and when they're that full of hatred, the limitations are endless. And as we've seen, they will not stop. They will not stop. The levels continue to stoop lower and lower of what they're getting away with and what they're capable of doing. And the US will back them every step of the way. But every single poll since this started has shown overwhelming support by Israeli Jews for the genocide, for the starvation campaign, caging millions of people, depriving them of basic human rights, electricity. I mean, the anti-Muslim bigotry that makes this rational and justified in the eyes of the Western world is really, really horrific and despicable. But Israeli society is too far gone. And that's why BDS is paramount. It's so necessary that we start to isolate this pariah country, the settler colonial country, and really try to shame anyone who's participating in it, because they cannot help themselves at this point. There is no left-wing faction within Israeli society who's going to fix this problem.
Britain's Prime Minister is claiming that we're not actually involved in the war in Iran, at least not offensively. We're supposedly only participating in defensive strikes, letting Donald Trump use these bases in England and Diego Garcia to mount so-called defensive strikes. What do you make of that?
What are defensive strikes? What are they claiming are defensive strikes? They already claim that they eradicated the fake nuclear arsenal, right? That we already know never existed, that we've been told for 20 years that they're on the doorstep of getting a nuke when Israel's the only country that has nukes. What the fuck is a defensive strike? What is that contradictory term? It's the same kind of polite imperialism from neoliberalism. I mean, that's what's so amazing about this era that we're in, where Trump has completely ripped the mask off the horrific, belligerent nature of US empire and its junior, pathetic lapdogs in Europe, right? This prime minister here is, I don't know who voted for this guy. He has the charisma of like a piece of cardboard that's been rotting in the streets. This guy is a maniac. The fact that he's laying down for Donald Trump while still trying to placate people by being like, oh no, we're not really at war. I was floored to learn how many bases the UK still has around the world, because all of those bases are used by the US. I was doing research for this documentary and I thought, oh my God, there's still 150 at least overseas military installations. The colonial, holdover of the British Empire. And it's just been folded into the apparatus of the US. And it's quite pathetic. It's quite a pathetic exchange where it's just complete subservience, complete domination from these monsters, And so all of this polite, decorum, all of the respectability politics, it all kind of goes out the window when you see everyone just placating and acquiescing to Donald Trump, ushering in the Fourth Reich. And there's no allied forces waiting to save us because they all are letting it happen.
What's it like trying to work in that media ecosystem, and both in terms of trying to get a film like the one you just made published, but also earlier in your career, just trying to break news stories when those are the outlets that you have to work with?
I was radicalized during the Iraq War. I was motivated by media that I saw. So I saw the power and potency of media being a tool for mass consciousness and education. And I became a journalist out of necessity because I saw the abject failure of the institution of journalism holding power to account, dissecting the propaganda for war. Instead, they were complicit. They were manufacturing the consent, just repeating the claims of the government about WMDs. It was such a harrowing time. And so I became an advocacy journalist at that point, which was wearing my bias on my sleeve, uplifting people's narratives who are being oppressed and marginalized by this global system of like military empire, basically global dictatorship of militarism. I've always worked outside the system, but I have seen it got so much worse. What I was able to do 15 years ago is nearly impossible in the States. There's no funding. We're out, begging there's no left-wing Peter Thiel. There's no shortage of funds if you want to repeat right-wing propaganda. And you can paint yourself as like a dissident, right? You're an anti-deep state populist, you're this and that, but it all folds into MAGA at the end of the day. And it serves that narrative, and that's why these people have no shortage of funds. But it's gotten so much worse. I remember starting off in the field, learning about, the consolidation of media, going from hundreds of stations to then just a few, the defunding of public broadcasting, all these things that have happened just in the last few years, the media mergers that we just saw in the last couple of weeks. Barry Weiss, a genocide denier, being elevated to running CBS. This was like one of the last vestiges of like real news. 60 Minutes, right? And now CNN. Now CNN. So this is, you fly upwards, you fail and fly upwards in the States. If you are a lapdog and if you'll repeat the right talking points and you do your job, you can reach the stars.
Abby, it's been great to meet you and discuss the state of the media. If you like this interview and want it to reach a wider audience, please share the video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you want to watch Abby's documentary, head to earthsgreatestenemy.com. Thanks for watching.